Good. Okay, so I thought maybe talk a little bit about the development of the false view of our ego and what's the effects of that. What does it create as far as how we build up all the different responses and the emotions that we deal with in more or less daily life. So the basis of this, or the understanding of this, comes from the fact that the Buddhist idea is that our mind in its very nature, and when I talk about mind, I shouldn't use mind, but the consciousness, because Buddhism, there's no fixed mind. That's what the problem is. We think there's a fixed person within us. We think there's an ego within us that exists. And we build off of that, and we more or less design our life around it. But the fact is that our mind is open like space, like open space. And because of that open space and that spaciousness, it's beyond all limitations. It's beyond all types of concepts. The worst concept, the biggest concept that's created the biggest problem in Buddhism is called ignorance. But it's not normal ignorance. It's not relative ignorance or conventional ignorance of being ignorant how to turn the water on in your kitchen or how to turn the light on in your house. This is more on the psychological level. This has to do with not understanding that our mind is like a stream that's continuously flowing, the stream of consciousness. But from that, we are confused. There's a level of confusion. It's almost like we have amnesia. We don't know who we are, so we have to begin to decide, well, who am I? And so that's where it starts. I am this. And so from the concept of I am this, within that, we begin to create what we like, what we don't like around us. And so we have these kind of three types of reactions out of that, which is, we either, what we decide we like, we either grasp and try to pull into ourselves. What we decide we don't like, we try to push away from ourselves. And what we haven't decided upon yet, we're just kind of foggy. Oh, I don't know, that person hasn't done this to me, hasn't done that, so I'm undecided whether I like them or I don't like them. So where's the problem lie? The problem lies that if we sit down in meditation and we let our mind become clear, we have an innate wisdom, innate intelligence. We have a primal intelligence within ourselves that's not based upon thinking I exist by myself inside of me. Only, somewhere within my mind stream, somewhere within my body, there's this person, there's this Scott, there's somebody there. That in itself is not even that bad. What's bad about it is if we look closely, the wrong concept has to do with we're hallucinating a view about ourselves. We've had to say, oh, wait a minute, I have to feel real, so I have to be this. And if I have to be this, then that has to be that. And so, why are we hallucinating? Because if we look within, we cannot find anywhere within our mind stream, within our breathing, or the world around us, we cannot find an entity that exists as itself, only itself, non-changing. So when I draw my concepts, basically, and get fixed on my concepts, it's part of this neural network of craziness. It's nuts what we've done. So, for example, in Buddhism, there's what's known as two truths: relative truth and absolute truth, conventional truth and absolute truth. So on the conventional level, things exist. It's not saying things don't exist. It's how they exist. It's not saying we don't exist. It's how we exist. We exist as this, more or less stream of consciousness, becoming aware of things, but because we begin to attach wrong views about ourselves and wrong views about what comes into our senses, whether it's through the eye sense, through the eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, touch consciousness, we believe all those things to be fixed and real. We believe I am this and that is that. So that's the way the world is. And so when I come in contact with different things, I first of all can't be satisfied even if it's something that I'm grasping after, because by the nature of grasping at something, I'm not more or less calm. I'm not satisfied. I'm dissatisfied, so I'm grasping at something. And there's no problem. This is not saying that we can't have the world around us and have our lives and it's how we deal with them. Do we deal with them in an intelligent level, or do we deal with them on like hallucination? So basically, I'll just give a little example. So let's say on a conventional level. So years ago in Europe and even in the U.S., somewhere in the early 1900s, people felt that if you didn't have a suntan, if your skin's very light, that's beautiful, because somehow people associated, you don't have to do daily labor, hard work outside, and so you must be elite. You must be something special, if you have this very white complexion and things and that. Now we get here, and I don't know what, from the 1950s or so, and you go here. Now, if you don't have a suntan, because a suntan, you can go on vacation and you're not looking healthy. Concepts. These are concepts. Is one really good? Is one really bad? No. Relatively, they're good or bad, depending on who you're living with and what people are doing at that time. That's conventional truth. That's relative truth. Ultimate truth means there is no suchness, nothing inside of that in itself that makes it have anything existing that makes it ultimately good or bad. It's only relative to who we are and what we are. So what takes place is we do the same thing. If you went back, I think it was many years ago, if you were too thin, people think, you're sickly, it's not very good, and so people would be heavier because that looks better. Then you're like some kind of king or something. Concepts. These are relative concepts relative to time and place. So that conventional wisdom is not real in the sense that it doesn't exist within the object besides our labeling it from our programming. So because we've developed this idea of I have to decide, I like this, I like that, I like this, I like that, I don't like this, I don't like that. And so we have a picture of ourself. We have a picture of ourself that we spend our time trying to pull in, what we like and push away what we don't like, rather than seeing things as they really are. We see them through these tinted sunglasses, the way that we've distorted our mind, because on top of that, we built up these feelings, we've built up these concepts, we've built up this formation that in Tibetan thing is kind of like these karmic formations. So as soon as we come in contact with a particular situation, we react. We don't know any better. When we're little, we're maybe afraid of the dark. But as we get older, our mind's a little bit better, and so we're not so afraid of the dark, unless we get to a really dark place, out in the mountains or something, then we maybe still have that fear of, but that fear of darkness is this concept, that's, built within. And when our mind gets smart enough to realize that there's nothing there to be fearful for, then these type of emotions that we end up having that are fear, and we end up having stress, and we end up creating all different reasons why we have anxiety. Okay, so the problem is that when we begin to understand how this layers these different networks, like a spider web that we've created, this whole thing, which means that now it's gone kind of out of control, because anytime we come in contact, we have to react to it that way. I'm going someplace, I'm not enjoying where I'm at, I'm not enjoying the drive, which is maybe very nice on a beautiful day, but there's a light and I have to be somewhere, and so I hit a red light, and then immediately it creates a problem inside of myself. So this ego network reinforces that every time that happens. That's what in Buddhism, I don't know if you've ever heard the words, have you ever heard the word samsara? No. So samsara is the opposite of nirvana. So it's not the band nirvana, but nirvana means once you move beyond, your conceptual framework and are living in consciousness, which is not controlled by different things. So samsara, it kind of means like recycling. We keep recycling our personality. Whatever about our personality, what we like, what we don't like, we keep recycling it. Every time we keep recycling it, we keep imprinting it onto our mind that this is me. We make it harder for ourselves to be breaking out of that. So what happens is, using meditation in the sense that we begin to quiet down a little bit, and we begin to discover that the real nature of our mind is similar to the sun. The sun's there, but sometimes there's a lot of clouds. But when the clouds break up, the sun shines through. The pure nature of our mind, the real nature of our mind, can begin to shine through once we begin to slow down. When I say slow down, it's because we have a type of frantic energy that's always, I want this, I want this. So even while we're sitting meditating, at first we start to sit and we're kind of quiet meditating, and everything's feel calm and clear. And then all of a sudden we realize, something's different, and I want to get back to that state again, and I want to get to this, and I want that. And I keep on this grasping. There keeps on becoming some grasping. We don't get to the state of just letting go, because that's ego's world, that's ego's trick. Because if it's moving fast enough, I don't know what they do now, but in the old days, how when you go to see a movie, they put the movie on this big reel and run that. So when it runs through, it was made up of all these little still shots, but it looks real and solid. So if we keep our mind moving fast enough, chasing after these things, then ego's telling us, yeah, that's you. You feel real. You feel real. That's you, and this is really you, and that's really that, and that's the world. So all of a sudden, when we realize that our mind is made up of these little, nano moments, none of them stopping for a minute, becoming aware of things, but never within any of those can we find a fixed us that's inside there, that's unchanging, and that has to be that way. Never are we going to find that is the way that it is. So the person with the suntan looks good or looks bad. I think that's the way it is, and if you think different, we get into an argument. All it is a relative concept. Just a relative concept, a conventional concept of the time, but has no reality on its own beyond our mind labeling it as such. And so the more we keep this speed going and this movement going and keep on this grasping, then we begin to grasp, we begin to push. There's never a time to just, oh my God, just let go and relax. But that exists at any moment. At any moment, actually, we can sit and we can let go for a second. What letting go really means is, which I say all the time, it means absence of activity, absence of doing. We can just sit within the clarity of our mind, within the awareness. So we'll have things come up in our arm and our legs, our knees, but when we feel that energy, if we sit there and we don't think that I'm feeling pain in my knee, but we just feel the energy in our knee, it no longer becomes pain because we stop labeling it as pain. It just becomes energy. And that creates a little slight awakening in our mind. Our mind wakes up. That's what Buddha means. It means fully awakened. We wake up. That's all. Not meaning anything. Doesn't mean, it's not held by only Buddhists have this. It just happens that, Buddha was one that sat down and sat with himself and began by being able to sit quiet. He was not afraid of anything that came up. So nothing, at the point he becomes enlightened, nothing creates stress. Nothing creates anxiety. Nothing is creating, all these type of neurotical type things that happen. But when we exist within this network that we believe is I, and then because there's like a self-grasping and a self-cherishing, then our actions of our body, of our mind, of our speech, all become based off of that. So, if I think, okay, well, I've got this job, and I've got to become, very rich from it, and so because that's more important to me. And when we say me in this sense, ego's world is not just me; it's me and my world. So my family, my environment. It can be anything. It depends on us. What is our mandala? What is our environment? And then if I need to be doing something, does it matter if I hurt her or him to get something more, to make things better? No, it doesn't matter, because ultimately this is making my life better, but it doesn't make our life better. Those things do not help the quality of our life. What helps the quality of our life is becoming softer with ourselves. It's becoming not afraid of ourselves. So when you feel something in your knee or your back, instead of fighting and things with that, instead of labeling, instead of creating duality, me and this, your mind begins to experience space in non-duality. And so, if that's your knee and that's what you're feeling, why do you want to get rid of it? Whatever that energy is, just feel. That energy is actually healing energy. When we feel the physical pains, the mental pains within ourselves, when we sit there, we can actually self-heal because we begin to welcome them as part of ourself, as part of our world, rather than labeling it this and that and this and that and pushing this away, and I'm not happy here, so I've got to go after that. And the other one, which is kind of, as I said, there's three main type of the Sanskrit word is klesas, but what they mean is like, it's kind of like what's covering our mind from its basic sun nature that shines through. So the kind of aggression and hatred and what we want to push away from us, or attachment, and what we're grasping after. And then there's one that, as I said, hasn't made the decision yet. So it's not having equanimity. Because in truth, everything we come in contact with throughout the day, in our body and in our mind, and what we taste and what we see and what we feel, all of that is what's known in some of the more higher practices are of one taste. They do not have an existing duality inside there. They all have an equal type of energy to them. It's what we place upon them. So sitting down and becoming quiet, within ourselves, allows us to, all of a sudden, we create an earthquake to ego's world. Because ego's world, as I said, has to keep the speed and has to keep going every second, every second, every second, every second. So all of a sudden, it creates an earthquake because we realize there's actually some space within there. We've quieted down, and what we believed is not real, is not true. It only exists because I made it exist. Because I came up with the concept of I. We don't do this. We don't learn this today. That's not what any of us grew up with here. I grew up in this area. We didn't grow up learning about this. Luckily, I was lucky enough to come around some of my teachers, some lamas that were able to find and spark where the real wisdom lies, within ourselves, and how that can affect our lives. How that can, once we begin to see now. Of course, the issue is that when we've created this type of energy, it comes very quick. Like my dog, I've had 6 German Shepherds. I've trained them all myself. This last one is the most trying one. He's basically, well, I can't take them that much off leash now anymore anyway because they don't allow it. But the others, I could stop them, just as they move. But this one goes from 0 to 10. Whatever went on inside that, the brain, there's something goofy with it, so it goes from 0 to 10. So what we want to do is we start to become aware of our situations so that we don't get up to 10. If we can begin to slow the process down a little bit, beforehand, because once it does that, of course, then, we've been caught up within that whole energy, of that creation and things. How are you doing for time there? Are you okay with things?
7:35. Yeah, like 10 minutes.
Okay, so I'll talk for a few more minutes, and then if we want to discuss. So, so basically, the importance, within this sitting, becomes a self-help therapy for ourselves. Because if we sit there and we investigate what we think we are, who we think we are, where does it exist, where did I come from, where am I going, where is this reaction to this? If we begin to look deeper within it, it falls apart. First of all, it falls apart anyway, because nothing is static. Did you ever look? I was sitting on my deck and I was looking up at the clouds in the sky, and you first take a quick look and you think, okay, they're there, that's just the way they are. But then you sit there and you look at them and you see they're actually moving and they're changing shape and things are moving, When we don't immediately react and think this is the way it is, but we take a closer look, we're already beginning to look at something from a different perspective. When you look at something, if you took that film and you took a look at the still shot here and the still shot here before, this one that's showing, it showed from a little different angle, whatever it was, because that's how it got. The person was moving from here to here to here, if you're watching a movie or something there. Every situation that arises, we're moving so fast, we're moving at supersonic speed, so everything looks fast and solid. Now we begin to slow down, and we start to see, the world around us is made up of physical energy, of shapes and colors. But there's no thingness within them. They're just made up of these different ones, and then depending on how they are, we put some particular label. But if we actually really looked, the colors actually break down into more subtle levels, so that the physical energy of the world is actually made up of this very subtle energy, which we don't see at all because we're moving so fast. So when we walk, we can begin to see some things that we never saw when we drove by. When we drive, we see some things we never saw when we flew over an area, because it's all moved so fast. So what happened? My life's over and I didn't see anything. I've missed everything. I tried for everything and I missed everything. Because I was trying rather than just experiencing life within the moment. Trying to see what is really there. So this is very, very difficult because, of course, we've got, we have these particular concepts of how we have to be and how we have to react. And the bigger problem is that the people around us, the family around us, has a very fixed view of us. So, and by the way, all of their fixed views are not the same. They're each different, but they all think their view is the correct one. So they think they know who we are as well, and they treat us according to their concepts. So, unless we try to really, really sit back and relax a little bit and learn how to deal with it, the world around us, we've created the karma to be within this situation, and this situation can overtake us. But once we begin to look at things differently, so I was saying that what happens is that once our mind for a moment goes within and has a momentary experience of the spaciousness and of the clarity of mind, the mind's nature is clear and knowing, but we're distorting it. I always use the example of like going to the carnival, and you look in those mirrors with the distorted. That's what's happening. We distort everything we see, feel, touch, think all the time, but we think we're right about it. So once all of a sudden that process falls apart. There's like an earthquake that breaks up ego's world even for a second. It causes a shaking inside there, that has an incredible type of effect. Unfortunately for us, most of the time, as soon as that happens, we become aware of it, and then we say, oh, I'm not there, I want to get back to it, and we grasp back for it again. So it's always a process of working, within each moment. It's this awareness, mindfulness, becoming mindful, becoming aware, and beginning to, all of a sudden, when that starts to take place. So when we find ourselves, putting ourselves in nature, go on vacation and we're by the ocean or we're up in the mountains, that nature has an effect on our inner nature. And we become calmer, quieter. All of a sudden, the green looks greener on the trees. The flowers look brighter. The smells they didn't change. They are the way they are. But the perceiver has now begun to perceive it closer to what real reality is, as opposed to our projected reality of what we project upon everything. So we are the movie projector. We're continuously this movie projector. So I know you have to get going, so if you want to take a few minutes to have any questions, or if not, that's fine, whatever you'd like. Yes?
No.
You could leave it on for questions if you want to ask anything or any doubts or anything.
No, I felt those pains in certain areas and was able to acknowledge them.
Yeah.
They went away, and something else happened in an elbow or a finger. Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the energy is going to keep moving. What we do with it, starts to become. So that's it. Once we become aware of that, that's a tremendous experience for you. That's a very good experience for you, because that just you just won the lottery ticket, because you're finding a key to begin to deal with, life's issues. Life's issues are manufactured. So. Okay. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Just do a slight little dedication, which is that whatever awareness, positive energy came about, any calmness, clarity, may that go toward awakening our mind. May it go toward relieving pain and suffering for those close to us, those we don't know, those within war zones, that they can find peace and happiness. Those that are hungry, being able to find food. Those that have thirst, finding water. Whatever is necessary. May this go toward that benefit for all life force. Thank you.